morning. I'm going to start 2 minutes early just so that we give our first and very special speaker time. My name is Robin Raskin. My company's name is Living in Digital Times. We've partnered with CES for the past, is this really echoey? Yeah. We've partnered with CES for the past 12 years to look for opportunities to educate audience about products in the context of life. So we know that retailers are here looking for the best solutions to further their businesses, and we know that technologists and developers are here creating those products. So the point of the high-tech retailing experience in Summit is to bring those together in one room and talk about the challenges and opportunities that we face as business. We run digital health also. We ran digital money yesterday. We'll have kids and family tomorrow. So it's all in the effort of helping technology do better business. Today, you've got a fantastic lineup of speakers that are going to walk you through every trend that you've seen on the show floor vis-a-vis the context of retail. And there is so much going on, both here. We'll look at the international market. We'll look at the 100-pound gorillas in the room. We'll look at AI, AR, VR. So I hope that you stick with us. We have a pretty exciting day planned, as well as a wonderful lunch and announcement. And with that, I'm going to bring up your MC for the day, Laura Heller, a Forbes contributor and longtime retail journalist, to guide you through the day. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, and welcome to the third annual High Tech Retailing Summit. I see a few familiar faces. Thank you and welcome back. I'm glad you're finding value here year after year. As Robin mentioned, I'm Laura Heller, and I've been covering retail for a very long time, specifically the technology sector. This is my 22nd CES. Yeah, I know they don't give me any medals, or a massage at the end. That would be awesome. So my perspective really begins back then, and CES was a consumer product showcase, right? And the retailers came here and they looked at product lineups and they planned their year and they made their orders and they firmed up their relationships. But retail has changed as the consumer marketplace has changed and CES has changed. And it is now more of a showcase for innovation, right? You can still see the latest and greatest TVs and all the big consumer products. But really what we talk about more often than not is what's inside of those products and how that is fueling the lives that we live. And part of our focus here at the High Tech Retailing Summit is to focus in on how retailers are using these technologies to be better retailers, to serve their customers better, to run their businesses more efficiently, and to innovate themselves. I mean, so many retailers today have labs and they create their own technologies, and many of them eventually end up on the show floor at CES to showcase those. And CES can be really confusing, and we're hoping to narrow this into your interests today. We get a lot of criticism sometimes at CES that we have technology for technology's sake, and there's a lot of shiny objects sometimes flying around outside of the convention center. But what we really like to do here is showcase the practical. And that's why I'm so excited to welcome our first speaker, Sandy Carter. She is a Vice President with AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. And this is her area of focus is innovation, and not innovation for innovation's sake. It is innovation for practical use cases. And I'd like to welcome Sandy here to walk us through how they at AWS focus in on innovation, coach through the process, and hopefully we'll leave here a little more inspired ourselves. Sandy.
So good morning. When Robin and Laura asked me to come and speak, they told me to break a leg. So I did. I broke my femur. So I'm not going to be on stage today. So hopefully it'll be a little bit more intimate as we go through some of the areas around innovation. As Laura said, my name is Sandy Carter. I'm a vice president with Amazon Web Services. So I focus in on the technology portion that fuels lots of businesses around the world. I've included my Twitter handle here in case I don't get to your questions, but I'm also active on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. So if you have a question that I don't answer, just hit me up on one of those. As long as you tag me in it, I'll make sure that I answer the question. So I have 2 daughters. And one of the things that we do every Sunday is I make pancakes. That's part of my tradition. So one day, my daughters brought me this picture of this pancake. And they said, "Mom, can you make me that pancake?" And I looked at it and I said, "Sure, I can create that. I can build that for sure." And so I did. A couple of lessons from this pancake example. First, I listened to my customers, my daughters, and I attempted to create what they told me were their requirements. 2, it wasn't effective MVP, or minimum viable product, because they ate it and they Instagrammed it. I was a little bit nervous about that. But 3, most experimentation and innovation is a little messy. And typically when you start out, you don't start out with the best user interface. Now, today we're going to be talking about innovation, and I'll use some of those examples as we go along. But when I talk about innovation, especially since this is the first presentation of the day, I wanted to make sure that you guys are thinking about innovation in a really broad sense. Most people think about innovation of a product. Like, how can I make this product better? How can I put more features in the product? But innovation, if you think about it across the world, is really more than just product innovation. It also involves operational excellence. So here at CES, you're going to see robots who are going to help with automation. You're going to see AI being used and AR being used around operational efficiency and excellence. Client experience, so important for retailers, but now in every industry. Gartner just published a report that said that customer experience is the last form of true differentiation. And I'll show you an example of Lululemon and how they're really innovating on the customer experience. And then the business model. If you think about Silicon Valley, before my years at Amazon, I had my own company in Silicon Valley. They're always looking at innovation in the business model. Think Airbnb. Who would have ever thought that Airbnb, with a new business model innovation, could disrupt the hotel industry? So as we're going through innovation today, make sure you're thinking on these 4 dimensions. So the bottom line for innovation, the way that Amazon approaches innovation, is that innovation is really all about empathy for your customer. Not empathy for a company or for an industry, but for the customer that you're targeting. And we look at kind of 3 different areas. One is customer obsession, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The second is culture. That's your culture and how you instigate innovation within your culture. And then finally is curiosity, and we'll talk a little bit about that. One of our leadership principles at Amazon is called learn and be curious. Curiosity, one of the things that we look for as we hire new builders to innovate. So let's start first with that customer obsession. Now, I've worked for quite a few companies, and I've done customer-focused initiatives, customer-driven initiatives. So what makes customer obsession so different? When I came to Amazon, one of the interesting things is how much time the senior executive team all the way down spends with customers. So if you look at the studies, it shows that on average, a startup C-suite will spend 80% of their time with their customers. A large enterprise, their executives spend 20% of their time with their customers and 80% of their time with internal meetings and collaborations. So if you think about that, you're missing that direct voice of the customer. Well, Amazon flips that on its head. So I have now innovated over 34 different services for Amazon, new offerings, new innovations, built things. My first one, so I'm a vice president with Amazon, I personally talked to 141 customers myself and 100 partners. Now that's just me. That's not even the whole engineering team underneath me. That's me personally talking and really understanding what that customer need is. Now I've come from a lot of companies, I'm in tech, that are very tech-first companies. And I've already seen some really interesting innovation here that is very tech-centric. So yesterday, I don't know if you guys caught it, I saw delivery of a roll of toilet tissue using AI and sensors coming out to you. That to me is tech first, not customer obsessed. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of that. This is a company that was funded in Silicon Valley. And what they produced was a set of smart salt shakers, right? So you put salt on your food. They got 2 rounds of high-level VC funding. Now, what did these salt shakers do? Well, first of all, they had IoT sensors in them. So it knew when you touched the salt shaker to dispense the salt. Second, it was linked to Amazon Alexa because there were little speakers in the salt shakers and it plays music. And here you can see it's on blue, but it'll flash red, yellow, blue music at you on your dinner table. But wait, there is more. It also has embedded artificial intelligence and machine learning because it knows that in the morning for your eggs, you want a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, but at night for your steak, you want an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And just to make the whole tech picture complete, you have to dispense the salt through a mobile app that you download to your phone, and you specify that you want the salt to come out. Now, they got 2 rounds of amazing funding. Do you think that this was customer obsessed? No, in fact, it did not succeed. It got all that funding, I think, because it had every buzzword you could think of for technology. This is technology obsessed, not customer obsessed. So let me show you another example, another Silicon Valley example, and this is jerky. Anybody in here eat jerky? Okay, I don't eat jerky, but my family tells me this is the best. It's out of Silicon Valley. And what they found doing some of their discussions with customers is their product management team found that they're rated the #1 jerky in the world according to taste. But what people don't like is that the jerky gets stuck in your teeth, right? And so they started with innovation around the product. We got to fix the product. So they started with different recipes, different formulas, but the customers didn't like it as well. So what they did, which I think is super cool, is if you look at that little circle there, is they changed the customer experience. They added dental floss in every bag of jerky. So now the problem, which was it got stuck in my teeth, I didn't eliminate it by a product innovation, but by an experience. You now had dental floss that you could remove it. Do you think customers like this? They love this. This went viral. Go read about it online. It's pretty amazing how making this customer experience change, being customer obsessed, really made a difference. So we work with a lot of customers, so how do we at Amazon really make innovation part of who we are? We have things called mechanisms, not processes, but mechanisms that we use to replicate success. So there's 3 things that we do. The first one is we work backwards from the customer. So we don't work backwards from the technology. Do we love AI or IoT or AR? We do. And we use those as tools. But our #1 focus is, what does the customer want? What do they need? What are the problems or challenges that we're trying to solve across all 4 areas: product, operational excellence, business model, and customer experience. Customer experience is really important to us. So then the second thing that we do in this innovation process is we actually write the press release. Now, every other company I've ever worked at, we write the press release after the new innovation is developed, after it's built, after it's innovated. But at Amazon, we start with the press release. So after you talk to those 300 customers, you have to come up with the headline. What's the #1 thing that you're gonna do with this new innovation? The first paragraph is really around what it is. The second paragraph, like 2 or 3 sentences, is what problem you're trying to solve. And then you go into customer quotes, and they have to be real customer quotes. So it's really flipping the whole innovation process on its head, doing it first with a press release. And try this. You really need to go home and try this because it's really hard. And then what we do is we write an FAQ, a set of frequently asked questions. Now, when I first came into Amazon, I thought, well, this will be easy because I will create my questions and then I will answer those questions. But wouldn't you know it, that Amazon already has a set of questions. So some of them are, if you're having dinner with a customer and they're real excited and they give you one sentence about why they love whatever that innovation is, what would that sentence be? But then it gets harder. So you're later at a bar and you're having a drink with a customer who hates your innovation. What is the one thing that they're going to say that they hate about what you just delivered? It's lacking in a feature or it does something the wrong way. I can't tell you how many times that we have flipped our innovation because that one thing that we think the customer is going to say is not going to be the right thing for the customer. So we will rewrite, re-innovate on what we want to do. If you read Jeff Bezos' annual reports, shareholder reports, he talks about this process, this narrative process, and that rewriting this, 1733 times is part of building and innovating something that is lasting and something that customers want. So some of the other questions that we look at that I think are really interesting are, who is the customer? So we just did a digital workshop for a company, and when we asked this question, they told us our customer is the telecommunications industry. Is that a customer? No, that's an industry. That's a vertical. That's not the customer. Like, who in particular? Is it the chief marketing officer? Is it an IT developer? Is it a child? Who is the customer that you're targeting? We look at what is the customer problem and what is the most important benefit. So it's not every benefit. It's the most important one. So that becomes your tenet. We have these things called tenets. So we never sacrifice that most important customer benefit that we're going after. Then we asked a question, how do you know that this is what the customers need? How many of you have ever been in a customer focus group and your senior executive team knows the answer, so then they ask the questions a particular way, right? So you get the answer that you were looking for. So we actually want to know, how did you figure out that this was what the customers were struggling with? This is why we also hire a lot of people who act like the people that we build for. So in Amazon Web Services, I hire builders because that's who my target market is. I hire those that I want to produce for. And then the last one is the customer experience. So you remember I told you that very first service that I built for Amazon Web Services. I did wireframes before we built a single line of code and technology code. My CEO looked at that wireframe before I built anything. The CEO looked at that before we built it. That tells you how important that we view that customer experience to be. So the second thing after customer experience for us is about culture. So I'm a technologist, so I call this the software of your business, right? Not the hardware, but the software. And it's not really about what you say in your company. It's about what you do. It's about the stories that people tell about what happens, lessons that are learned that are passed on to the next generation. So for example, Jeff Bezos is really known for if a customer has an issue and they send him a note, and it's really important, he will forward the note to you with just a question mark. That's the whole message, like question mark, like what's happening here? That sets a tone that, look, customers are important. These challenges are important to us. So, for example, if you say failure is not an option or failure is accepted, what you say doesn't matter as much as how do you treat failure. Do you celebrate it? In Amazon, one of the things we do every Wednesday morning is we have the teams come in and they present their biggest failures. And they share those as learning so we don't repeat them in other areas and what we learned. And that way, like my first couple of meetings, it set a tone for me, a culture for me, that as long as you're learning from the failures, then failure is good. It's good. But if those people had been fired, then I would be afraid to admit a failure or to even learn from a failure. Or maybe I wouldn't even take a bold, risky step because I would know that that would be punished and not a learning moment. So one of the customers that I love that's really created a great learning experience is Lululemon. And I know we have people from all over. So Lululemon, they do athletic wear. For women, it's a lot of yoga clothes, most comfortable clothes you could possibly buy. They have a whole men's line as well. And so what they wanted to do is to really produce a whole set of digital services that were integrated into their overall customer experience. So we got to help them do that and leverage that as they began to innovate much faster. So some of you may or may not know, they just opened a 20,000 square foot store in Chicago. And it is that integrated experience. They have this culture of test and learn, much like the culture I told you that exists at Amazon. How do we test something, learn from it, pivot if we need to, and continue on? They have brand ambassadors. So in Chicago, they had 45 local folks who come in and they teach meditation. They have recipes. It's all about being healthy. Exercise classes, really integrating everything together. And one of the things I love is the mantra is every experience is earned, every choice is guided. So they're helping you have that great experience because in the end, for them, they believe that shoppers aren't looking for a transaction. They're looking for that great customer experience. Now, in Amazon, and one of the things that we teach a lot of retailers who come in is the fact that we believe that small teams are really important to innovate. Many people will say to me, you work at Amazon, that's like a big company. You ran your own startup. Isn't that like vastly different? But it's really not, because every day I come to work at Amazon, I feel like I'm in my own startup, and because of the concept of two pizza teams. So what is a two pizza team? It means when you start a new innovation or you're building something new, you only get as many people as can eat 2 pizzas if you work late that night. So if you hire people who are really skinny and don't eat a lot, you get more people. The concept, though, is really important because those teams are then empowered to innovate. They have the say. They actually are like their own little CEO of their own startup. So what you have at Amazon is not a big monolithic company. You have a bunch of little startups inside of a big company that are empowered to make decisions, that are generating and driving an idea. So one of the examples that I think also does this is the NFL. I think the NFL is really interesting because they produce so much data. And as they were looking at how do we really create a better customer experience for our fans, the NFL, in case you don't know, is the National Football League in the United States. So it's football as in American football, not as in soccer. And so one of the things they wanted to say is, what can we do with all this data? We're generating 3 trillion terabytes of data. What can we do about that? So they're leveraging machine learning as a tool to innovate. Their innovation is not machine learning, but it's the way they train these models to deliver better knowledge back to their fans so that the fans can understand why a play was called, why a play was successful. Do we think that this punt is going to be successful or not? Really driving this through small teams, just like our 2 pizza teams that we had. And then the last concept in culture that is really important, it probably was the hardest for me to learn at Amazon when I came over, is this concept called high velocity decision making. So I've worked for large companies where all decisions that are made very thoughtfully, consensus basis. You go up level by level by level by level to make the decision. And then I had my own startup where every decision was boom, go, 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 go. But at Amazon, we actually differentiate between the speed of the decision. So if something is a decision that's going to impact a customer forever, we can't change that decision. That's called a one-way door. And we take a lot of time making that decision. We're very thoughtful. We get a lot of people in the room. We may talk about it for a long time. But if the decision is a two-way door, should my website be red or should it be blue? Should I try this marketing campaign or what should I do? Those decisions are two-way doors and you're expected to move really fast. In fact, most decisions that you make, if you think about it, are two-way door decisions. So throughout my day, I do two-way door, one-way door. So you have to really think about, as a leader, which of these are two-way door decisions and which of these are one-way door decisions, so I know how to approach that particular decision-making mode. So that's about the culture. The last area I wanted to talk to you about is curiosity. And here, I think this is really interesting. So if you look at the data, innovators, if you're an innovator, you're naturally curious. One of our leadership principles, learn and be curious. And some of the statistics I think are really interesting. So a study was done by Amy Wilkinson, and she looked at 1,300 top innovators, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, and she found that they ask over 100 questions a day. And as she started doing the research, she compared that to preschoolers. They ask hundreds of questions a day. But on average, all of us, we ask between 5 and 7 questions a day. We lose that curiosity. So you need to make more curious decisions. So diversity adds to that. If you have diverse teams, this is one of the reasons why I love what Robin's doing. She has diverse speakers. That gives you a different perspective. It causes you to ask more questions. This is from McKinsey, and it shows that diversity, 70% more likely to enter a new market. Why? You're curious. You're naturally asking more questions as you go. Two other examples of asking more questions. Redfin, based out of Seattle, they've disrupted the way real estate is done. And one of the things that they did is they started asking questions about their customers. What would our customers want? The seller, the buyer, the real estate agent. And they found that it was the way to estimate the value of your home. So Redfin, through that curiosity, was able to produce this Redfin estimator, which is one of the most accurate ways to appraise your home today. And then one of my very favorites, this is Nanette. Robin and I both know her. You see, I'm wearing her shirt today, which has some IoT lights on it. It's also washable LED embedded fabric, which is very unusual. I also have her safety ring on, which is IoT-based, but the real value in it is her curiosity was how are most people assaulted? Well, they're assaulted primarily from behind, so you can't reach for your mace or something to help you. And so as you're assaulted, if you reach your hands back, you can touch a ring and get help, which alerts the police or an emergency vehicle or whoever you want to do. It was those curiosity questions that caused her to get to this innovation. And then last but not least, Chick-fil-A, looking for operational excellence. Asking questions, how can we keep our food fresh? How do we know that it's fresh? And so one of the things they do is they have computer vision trained on their food so they can make that operational innovation to keep that food as fresh as it possibly can be. And last but not least, a curiosity from the Singapore governments. Governments innovate, and I love what Singapore has done. They started asking their citizens, what can we do to add more value to what you do? And they created these moments of life. On the left-hand side, moment of life for aging. On the right-hand side, these moment of life digital experiences for people who've had new children, really innovating in that space. So in closing, innovation is about empathy. If you think about it overall, whether you're doing customer obsession, your culture, or your curiosity, it's got to be about empathizing with that particular customer. I want to leave you with this thought, though. This is a riddle. So a lily pad doubles in size every day. Okay, doubles in size every day. On the 60th day, if the pond is filled with lily pads, on what day was that pond half full? 59, that's right, 59, right? Because it doubles every day. So why do I leave you with this? Well, a lot of people will say, look, I've got lots of time. I've got lots of time to figure out how to innovate. I've got lots of time around disruption. Let me take my time What they don't know is they're sitting on day 59. The pond's only half full, but the market's moving so fast that on day 60, the pond's going to be full. So today's the day. Don't overanalyze what you're looking at. Experiment, get started, and go. Thank you so much for your time, and Robin, thank you for having me.